book review podcast episode. And this one is going to be Deep Work by Cal Newport. And I have to admit, I literally judged a book by its cover. I've seen Deep Work for a number of years. I put it off. I have what I call my big like Mount Rushmore of productivity books, including like the 4-Hour Work Week, Rework, Atomic Habits, and Principles. But I would add Deep Work. I think I would boot out Principles because that's more of just like life in general, and include this book, Deep Work by Cal Newport. Now, who is he? He's a PhD computer scientist. He's got a hell of a resume. And the reason I finally read it is because I live here in Austin, Texas, and Bastrop, Texas is only about 35 minutes to my east. And that's where a gentleman by the name of Ryan Holiday lives. Ryan Holiday is the author of a number of books, including my personal favorite, The Daily Stoic. And it's a beautiful, beautiful bookstore that you go into. And it's kind of your stereotypical one in this quaint little like Texas looking town. And when you walk in, there isn't this massive selection. It's personally curated by Ryan Holiday and maybe some other people that work at this bookstore of like the best of the best books. And what I saw on there on display was Deep Work. And I was like, you know what? I've had this. I actually bought it on Kindle on a special, and it's been sitting on my Kindle, and it's time to read it. And I was pleasantly surprised that I thoroughly enjoyed it. And the odd thing with like a lot of these productivity books isn't kind of like a slap you in the face, oh my God, this is just such a revelation and just such an astounding thing that I'm going to impute into my life. That's not what you find in these books. What you find in these books is some sort of formulaic or programmatic approach to how you can better serve yourself in terms of return on energy, maximizing productivity. And in return, we do what we all want, and that's make more money or have more output, whatever you value more. And it is specific to whatever it is your focus as well. So what is Deep Work? Deep Work, and this is straight from the book. Professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit. These efforts create new value, improve your skill, and are hard to replicate. So you're developing not only, besides the brand you want to develop for yourself, you're developing the skill sets, the reputation, and the actual ability to deliver on what the brand is. And that helps build your brand for who you are, what kind of worker you are, what kind of person you are in general. Again, it's not just specific. It is deep work, and it comes from a computer scientist and something that I think a lot of software engineers really focus in, but it is beyond that. If I'm even if I'm working from home and I am doing something in the yard, I think there's an element of deep work. And the first instance that I realized when they used a different word for deep work was in the 4-Hour Work Week. This is something that I preached since I first read the 4-Hour Work Week. God, I guess now 8 years ago. And that's called batching. It's when you have a singular focus for a period of time, and it's something that you schedule, something that you are just zoned in on, and I'm not going to do anything else. If it's in work, I'm not going to answer emails. I'm not going to answer Teams or Slack chats or anything else. I am solely focused on this, and all my energy is going to be expended on that. And in return, your output is much better than if you were just taking little pieces here and there. Like, I'm going to work on this, answer this email, work on this, answer that Teams chat. It just doesn't work that way. Now, it's something that is important that Cal Newport talks about in the book. Some people actually can work that way. They work in a state of what's called shallow work. And for us normal people, I don't think that we can live in this shallow work kind of realm. We got to live in this deep work. Now, what is shallow work? Non-cognitively demanding logistical style tasks often performed while distracted. These efforts tend to not create much new value in the world and are easy to replicate. So again, like things, just little mundane tasks here or there where you're distracted from the deep work, the more important tasks, and going into that shallow work and doing all these non-cognitively undemanding tasks. And that's what we want to stay away from. And what's the value? Why do I spend so much time in trying to maximize my output per minute. That's what I always tell people. Like if there's any person that I work for, the way I think about my value to a company is in the way that like a startup company kind of looks at, or someone that's like an acquisition target. If you're going to purchase me, for lack of a better term, if you're going to give me a certain salary, I want you in a measurable way to get 3 to 5x return. Now, when I say that, I'm like, oh man, I got to figure out how to work for myself, right? Because I want to take all that with me. But that's not a reality for a lot of people, and I enjoy who I work for personally. So that's the way I try to think about it. And to reach 3, 5x more return, I need to improve my output per minute. And that is where I come to things like deep work. Allows you to optimize your energy to work output by removing distractions to focus on singular tasks. You can master hard things quicker and produce an elite level. Now, mastering that hard things quicker, personally, that's kind of selfish, right? Like I love learning. I love developing new skill sets. So for me, I want to ramp up as quickly as possible. Again, how do we achieve this? Work deep, minimize the shallow work, batching. I want to hit this on the head. And even sometimes if I feel like my schedule's getting way too crazy, I'll block off my calendar and I will batch my work. It's not even like a singular task. It could be a task with like characteristics, some sort of common denominator. I'm going to batch those two together. I'm going to focus on one, and then I'm already in that mindset. I'm already dialed in. I'm already in the zone. Jump onto that next one. And that's the way to just maximize it. And then lists. I have tons of lists. I check them off and I move on and move forward. The second one, I used to do this. I had quit social media. Cal Newport actually has another book called Digital Minimalism. I have not read that one, but it's something that a lot of people who in highly productive jobs talk about. If you're someone like Elon Musk, not necessarily. I mean, you're actually running a social media company, but even before then, he was someone that was heavily active on socials, specifically Twitter, now X.com. I've tried this. Being a content creator, a lot of people that want to reach out and they want to do business with you, whether they want to sponsor or affiliate, they want to see some sort of other digital presence beyond one thing, like YouTube, for example. So that's where it is hard for me. But personally, I don't need to be scrolling Reels or YouTube Shorts all the time. That's a major problem for me. And then embrace boredom. I think a lot of people nowadays have a tremendous struggle with this, where it's okay. Like even if you go to a coffee shop and you're waiting for your coffee, that you don't pull out your phone, you don't sit there and start mindlessly scrolling, because then that creates, and this is something that Atomic Habits talks about, just a habit that you just don't want to fall into. So if you're at work and you're not on social media, or if you're just like sitting outside and you're not on social media, you're training new habits and you're getting into the rhythm of not needing to reach for your phone constantly. And that is a major impact when you're actually working. And then you ask yourself, what's your deep work? Again, it doesn't have to be specific to your role or just anything. Like I'm sorry, I said that wrong. It has to be specific to you. There is no broad generality of this is deep work for everyone. It's got to be specific to you. And again, I like to expand this principle outside of work. And then what's your shallow work? What distractions? These are the things you try to eliminate or try to mitigate as much as possible. So in the world of like batching, if shallow work, for example, is going to be answering a ton of emails, batch those two together. Just know that, once every 2 hours, I'm going to answer all these emails. There is no such thing, and I learned this, as an emergency work email. Someone will call you. Someone will keep pinging you if it is that important. And an interesting thing, the way to answer emails too is backwards. It is from the most recent. I see a lot of people do this. They start from the bottom and then they reply all. And you're like, well, this has already been answered. And to that's what happens sometimes. If you're the person who doesn't have to immediately answer and there's other people copied, sometimes someone else steps in and answers it for you. And that's something that you just never had to do in the first place. Schedule deep work. Again, that's with that batching or blocking off your calendar. And then revisit and reiterate, reflect on your performance. And then again, continually train on it and just learn how this can be effective. The important thing to note too, there's so much more detail that goes within the book, And a lot of people have great resources on how they've adapted deep work to their own. Like for me, I'm taking like a holistic approach, right? Like deep work is one of many books that I've personally read, and I like to take tidbits here or there. When I hear something like batching repeatedly from productivity experts, again, like Tim Ferriss, who wrote the 4 Hour Work Week, and now Cal Newport, well, something tells me, and I already do this, but if there was some sort of element, I was like, I really need to dial myself in and focus on this because so many high performing individuals find this so important. So, you know, take it as you wish. This is a broad overview. I highly encourage you to actually read the book Deep Work for yourself and a number of other productivity books. I find myself just constantly looking for what's that next thing I can impute into my personal life, into schedule, and it's just a never ending iteration of improvement. And to me, I think that's life is like you're a creative player in NBA 2K. Like that's how I see it. You've got all these skill sets you keep adding on, or like World of Warcraft, if you want to go that route, and you're just continually doing all these side quests in order to improve your character for the ultimate quest, which is, you know, for a lot of people to make a lot of money.